Alright, so we're holding almost towards the end of Perek Shlishi, Pirkei Avot. Very important Mishnayot. This time it's Rabbi Akiva who's going to advise us. Rabbi Akiva Omer, Tzchok v'kalut rosh margilim la'erva. In this Mishnah there are some ideas of how one can stay out of trouble. There are certain things that can easily lead one to trouble, that can make him make a mistake if he doesn't watch out. A lot of things appear to be sweet, a lot of things are enticing, tempting, but nonetheless, it's a trap. That's how it is. Sometimes in life we have to learn the hard way. But we don't need to learn the hard way if we learn the Torah. We learn the advice, whether it's in Pirkei Avot, Mishlei, Kohelet. There's so much good advice. And I tell people this many, many times. If they were to learn all of this advice in time, it will help them greatly. Not only help them avoid mistakes, certain mistakes are mir shamayim. You know, we have no choice. It's a tikkun, it's a kapara of sorts. We think we made a mistake, we should have known better, but it's mir shamayim. But many other times, it's simply because of a lack of knowledge. Ignorance is terrible. The more people are aware of certain things, the better they're off. It doesn't mean that that's in itself going to stop them from committing a wrong, but it helps to know certain things. It helps to know certain things because it may affect our attitude. In other words, even if something happens, how do we react to it? How do we deal with it? What's the solution for it? So there's a lot of reason to learn this great chokhmah, this great wisdom, whether it's Pirkei Avot, Mishlei, Kohelet, and then Bichlad, the Gemara, the Midrashei Chazal, the Zohar, the Kabbalah. There's a lot that we could learn about life from these various sources. So here in this Mishnah, there are several ideas, important ideas, that can help us stay out of trouble. One of them, the first one, is Chok v'kalut rosh. Apparently, because this is number one, I'm assuming that Rabbi Akiva says his opinion about this is that this is of extreme importance that people should be made aware of, because many people apparently will make this mistake without realizing it. In other words, naively. Not that people are wicked necessarily, but certain mistakes are made by assuming that certain things are okay, and they may be okay, but if they're in an exaggerated form or without any controls, that's when they can lead to trouble. So Tzchok v'kalut rosh being in first place are dangerous. What is Tzchok v'kalut rosh? Tzchok means laughter, but it doesn't just mean to laugh. To laugh, to smile is actually good. It's healthy. If you go to Chinatown, you'll see at 7 in the morning everybody's laughing. There's actually an exercise in laughing. Laughing is good for you. There's no doubt about it that it's good to laugh and not to be sad and despondent, but it depends at what time. Tzchok, too much of anything is no good, especially of tzchok and kalut rosh. Tzchok, the type he's talking about in English, is called jesting, joking around, as we call it. Just being very, very light. Kalut rosh, levity of the mind, joking around. What these two have in common, tzchok v'kalut rosh, is that these are the exact opposite of a serious personality. A serious personality is an individual who doesn't just make jokes all the time. He takes life seriously. Doesn't joke around. Doesn't mean that he doesn't like a good joke. Doesn't mean that he doesn't like to have some fun. He's just more serious about everything. He's more focused. And there are individuals who are just the opposite, who have a lot of tzchok and kalut rosh, very, very light-headed, very, very quick to make a joke or to make fun of things. That's what tzchok and kalut rosh means. What these two do to a person is margilim et ha'adam, margilim la'erva. They can accustom one easily to eventually, chas v'shalom, commit a serious sin of erva. Erva are forbidden relationships. A forbidden relationship, you know, the Torah forbids certain relationships, especially without marriage. So, the human being who is attracted sometimes to do the wrong thing, is attracted perhaps to have a forbidden relationship, which is what a nirva is, may not be able to see the limits, the lines that separated him from the Averah because of this nature of being lightheaded. So the lightheadedness, the levity of the mind, the joking, that kind of an attitude all the time with people and with the wrong people, could easily lead to that, could easily lead to him crossing over those lines that he once upon a time did exist without even realizing it. It just becomes easier for him. There's no seriousness, there's no limitations. That kind of a nature is dangerous. But it's more than that. It's not just that kind of a nature. For one to actually commit a sin that involves arayot, forbidden relationship, that which is forbidden, in other words, it's off limits, it has to be that he has lost his busha, he has lost his shame. Because shame is a form, or is a fence of a certain type that prevents people from committing sins. They don't want to be caught, they don't want to be seen, they don't want people to know about it. So for a person to actually get involved, he is basically on the verge of losing all shame. And that which once upon a time appeared to him to be serious or off limit is no longer, does not have that appearance anymore. So this kind of a behavior is dangerous because it actually removes that clarity that we once upon a time had. You know, the knowing that certain things are obviously not for us, they're not right, they're obvious. And things no longer become obvious. They become vague. They become opaque. In other words, they become, what's the word for a glass that's a little bit, not clear? Like hazy? There's another word for it. No. When something is not metushtash, we say in Hebrew.
Or clouded.
Yeah. It becomes a little bit, blurry. That's the word. Thank you. Blurry. Yes, no. So, there's not that much hesitation anymore. So this kind of an attitude, chok vekalut rosh, which means that, a person just doesn't take everything as seriously as it should, could be very, very dangerous. It could lead one to erva. The reason it says the word margilin means to accustom, is because once a person gets used to something, he just goes after it, he goes searching for it. Whereas once upon a time, he may have had to think 10 times about it. Should I not? What are the consequences of this? Initially, that's what people think. If something is off limits, they really think about it. So margilim, like the word regel, foot, they just take it automatically. It's like somebody who's addicted to a drug, addicted to alcohol. It just goes. He doesn't think too much about it. Doesn't think about the consequences. That's the best thing to do. We were advised that before. Always think. Always evaluate. Try to be, try to judge the situation. Try to see what this could lead to. Not everybody thinks. People act very, very, quickly without thinking. There's another word for that, impulsively, without too much thought. And that's when mistakes happen. We're not talking about the mistakes that happen inadvertently. That can happen to anyone. Even for that, one has to be careful that he should not be considered negligent. You should have known better. All right, mistakes happen. But for one to be the cause, for one to be guilty of something is because the precautions were not taken. That's, of course, a whole different story. That's what Rabbi is telling us. Listen, don't think that life has changed. The world is the same world as it used to be in many respects 2,000 years ago, close to 2,000 years ago, where Rabbi Akiva was saying this, about 1,900 years ago, give or take. Nature of human beings is pretty much the same. People have weaknesses. And that kind of attitude of very, very light and not serious, which at times is nice, that you're easygoing, that you're happy, that you laugh. Yes, to laugh, to have a joke, to break the routine, the boredom, whatever you want to, in class, some rabbis, before they began this shiur, they would say something humorous to get everybody awake and to focus. This would get them, this would bring them alive, But as a general attitude, it's unhealthy because it could lead to the wrong things. Next advice, Masoret Siag LaTorah. Masoret means tradition. What's so special about tradition? What does tradition mean? I mean, we have the Torah, we have the Gemara, we have the Zohar, right? We have the Kabbalah. These are all part of our, part of our sources of learning. This is where we take all of our learning from. So what is unique about Masoret? Masoret, which comes from the word to hand down, means that certain things that were taught need to be taken very, very carefully. In other words, they need to be accepted just right. We cannot tamper with them. We cannot change them. A lot of what is written in the Torah has interpretation, right? You don't just take the words literally. The words need to be interpreted, and who interprets them? The commentaries. What are the commentaries? The commentaries are part of our tradition. In other words, they know it was handed down to them the exact meaning of what this verse is saying. Because if you follow the words literally, sometimes you can make a mistake. Not only can you make a mistake because of a lack of understanding and a lack of tradition that was handed to you, but also because the human mind is so intelligent, or at least it thinks it is, that sometimes it ventures to argue with what the Torah, forgetting for a moment that this is God given, that this is divine, or that it ventures to argue with a commentary. And we should know better. This commentary, who may have lived 1,000 years ago, definitely knows better than we do. Somehow he was more aware, he was closer to Sinai for whatever reason. He may have known better. He may have been privy to information that we're not privy. So because the mind can and is sometimes willing to argue because of logic, or because of or whatever it thinks it knows better, one needs the Masoret. One has to respect the Masoret. Without respect for our tradition, or with a lack of respect, then one severs himself from tradition. As I told you, many children and grandchildren in this past 100 years have become very distant from tradition. They've lost respect for their parents and grandparents because the two go together. One who does not respect his father will not respect his father's tradition. One who does not respect his father's tradition means that he doesn't respect his father, because the two go together. If your father or your grandfather gave you this and you don't want it, that means you don't respect him. I mean, there's no other explanation. And what happens is when people sever themselves from their parents or from their grandparents, actually they're going to sever themselves eventually from their people. So there needs to be a continuous connection between one generation and the next generation, like a chain. You can't tolerate any separation, chas v'shalom, otherwise one is breaking it up, interrupting the flow. So Masoret is a siag LaTorah. What that means is that tradition, as it is, as we have it, is a fence to protect the Torah. Now, what does a fence mean? What does a fence do? When you put up a fence, what is it supposed to do? What is the purpose of the fence? A fence actually does two things. It protects those who are inside from the outside elements that we don't want them to come in, whether it's an animal, whether it's a criminal, whether it's anything. It's supposed to, prevent or help protect your property from outside forces. It also serves to protect those who are inside from going beyond the fence. And as I will explain, the two are important. Fence is there to protect from outside and from inside. How does that work? Well, throughout our history, the Jewish people, even though they had a Masoret, even though they had the Torah, even though they had rabbis and leaders, there were always dangers from the outside lurking. And many of you are familiar with those dangers, whether it was the Romans, the Greeks, whether it was the Inquisition. There was always dangers. And don't think only in the Catholic countries, in Muslim countries too, like in Mashhad, right? They forced the Jews to become Muslims. There were, depending on who the Qadi was, or who the Imam was, or who the leader was, it could have been trouble for the Jews. There was all kinds of pressure. And then there were economic pressures, like the ones that they had in this country at the turn of the 20th century when Jews started coming here. What do? you can't work on Shabbat, and the guy's telling you, you want to work for me, you have to work on Shabbat. What do you do? So their faith was being tested. These are forces, iyumim, as we call them in Hebrew, threats, that are coming from the outside, trying to break through this fence. The Torah is the fence. No, we're not going to let you in. What you're trying to do is remove Brit Milah, like they're trying to do in Europe today. No Brit Milah. Oh, you can't slaughter animals either. It's so painful for the poor cow, to use a knife. They were able to slaughter and butcher people, human beings. Here they're telling us not to do this to a cow, and we do it in the most humane way. So, all kinds of, and it's so fascinating that we're in the 21st century and they're actually still talking about these things. It's for sure anti-Semitism. There's no doubt about that. Why are they starting up all of a sudden, right? It was quiet for all these years. Brit Milah, Shechita, nobody said there was anything wrong with it. All of a sudden you have some leftists or some anti-Semites who have nothing better to do, just to pick on us. We won't allow this in our country. So you see that in every generation, in every country, there's all kinds of threats that, all kinds of issues. What do? You go to a hotel. I'm going to give you a cute one. This is a cute form of threat. It's not a big deal, but okay. You're, Baruch Hashem, you're in a hotel. It's a 5-star hotel, and they really treat you nice. They even gave you a bargain, $50 a night. You'd grab it, right? 5-star hotel, right? I'm not talking about in Alaska in some place. 5-star hotel in your favorite place. Okay, so you're all excited. You got a good deal. 5-star hotel for $50 a night, and you're going to stay there Shabbat too. And then they give you an electronic key, right? Electronic. You've seen them, right? You slip them in, and that's a problem for Shabbat. How are you going to open your door on Shabbat with an electronic key? You don't want to be mechalel Shabbat. You don't want to desecrate the Shabbat. Oh no! What now? So all of this technology, I don't want to call it a threat necessarily. It's a challenge. How does halakha deal with something like this? What's the best way around it? There may not be a good way around it. You may just have to leave your door open. Not at night, of course, when you're asleep, but when you're going outside, and hopefully no one will enter that room. Put your "Don't Disturb" sign outside, and don't leave any valuables in there. That's all. That's one way. There's several ideas of how to deal with it. I'm not going to get into that right now. I'll just give you a quick, small example of small threats or challenges, better, let's call them challenges, to our faith, that here we have to contend with new technology. And how does that, how do we deal with it? So anyway, Masoret. Masoret means we have a tradition. We know how to interpret a situation and how to use our sources of learning to be able to decide the halakha. Not everybody knows how to do that. A rabbi who's knowledgeable and familiar with halakha is able to look at a situation and say, okay, what are we going to do now? Somebody comes to Israel, he's in Israel, and he's going, and the woman is going to have a baby, or the man is going to have a surgery. It is Shabbat. They took him to the hospital. You're allowed to, right? Sure. But they tell him, listen, before we take you in, you got to sign. Shabbat. No, I'm sorry, we won't let you in unless you sign. So you have a group of people there that Baruch Hashem are knowledgeable in halakha, and they're scientists who were trying to help, the Jewish community. They came up with a pen that's kosher for Shabbat. The way this pen works is that you write your name, and 5-6 hours later, the ink disappears. By the time 5-6 hours went by, it's already Motzei Shabbat. You take a pen and you sign again. And any ink that's not permanent, if it's just wrote and eventually disappears, that's not forbidden by the Torah. It's only midrabanan. By rabbinic decree, you cannot use these things. But here, because there's a great need, that would be the second best situation. Or elevators. Elevator, how do you go to your 30th floor? If you're living in an apartment building, that's all you. I'm not so sure that's such a good idea to live on the 30th floor, unless of course you have a great view and you can't resist it. But on Shabbat, it's a problem. What do you do on Shabbat? You don't want to climb up the stairs, 30 floors. So there's elevators. They have to have elevators, and the elevator of Shabbat usually works like that it stops at every floor. by itself automatically. And depending on how the elevator is made, depending on the engineering of it, it may be acceptable. Many rabbis accept it. It's not going against halakha per se, it's just a way of dealing with this challenge that we have today in a permissible way. So you need masoret, you need good masoret to be able to help us to deal with all kinds of threats from the outside. But what about the threats from the inside? We said that the defense helps protect those who are inside. That's because, unfortunately, we've always had too much, unfortunately, that threats that were inside, amongst us, amongst the Jewish people, all kinds of movements, including the Reform movement, or the Tnuat HaSkala, the Enlightenment, or the Tzdukim and Baitusim of the past, the Sadducees, or the Karaites, various groups of people that attempted to modify, to make changes in our Torah, to say, oh, this doesn't apply anymore. Today we're modern, You can turn on, the lights, chas v'shalom. You can do this, you can do that. This doesn't apply. Who are they? Who gave them the permission? We have a masoret that hasn't changed. The Torah says it will never change. The Torah says you cannot alter it. You cannot change or add. The Torah knew in advance that these people will come. So therefore, it wrote, this is a sealed book. You can't tamper with it. Nevertheless, they try to. How do they do it? If the Torah says you can't tamper with it, because they say it was a committee. It wasn't God-given. The moment you say it was a committee, well, we're a committee too. We can make changes the way just like they did, we can do it too. The moment you remove God from this, that spells trouble. And that's where all the problems really begin, when Yirat Elokim, when the fear of God is removed. As we said before, when a person has no shame, he doesn't see any limits, no limitations. The shame basically removes the limits that may have existed. And the same thing with the lack of fear of God, then the person feels, I'm not accountable, there's no reason why I shouldn't do it. So he ventures to do anything he wishes to, whatever he believes in. So Masoret Siyag La Torah, very important idea that the tradition that we have actually helps us in many ways. Not only does it protect us from all sorts of influences, but it helps us understand our Torah. What would happen if we wouldn't have Masoret? Let me give you an example of what would happen if we had no Masoret. Part of our Masoret is the vowels of the letters. You look at a Sefer Torah, right now you will not see any vowels, you only see letters. How do you know how to read it? Without vowels, sometimes a word could mean one or two things. Most words, even when you read Farsi or Arabic, you may be able to read it okay because you're already you're familiar to the word, with the word. You see it, you don't have the vowels, even though it has vowels. The real way to do it, and that's the way kids learn Arabic and Farsi, right, is with vowels. A or E, right? O or U, depending on the language. Without the vowels, you may not know what it's saying, even though most of the letters are there. If you recognize it, you recognize it. Hebrew too, when you read the Torah, when you read even Lehavdil, a newspaper, no vowels, how are you able to read it? Because you're familiar already with the words, right? Here's a word, I'm going to give you a few words that without the vowels, it could have a completely different meaning. You see the word Zayin Kaf Resh. Zayin Kaf Resh, you see that, and you say, what's that? That could either be Zachar. Zachar means a male, a man, right? Or it could be Zecher, something to remember. Timche et Zecher Amalek. There was once a mistake made. Somebody read it, Timche, it's Zachar Amalek, all the males. It doesn't say all the males, it says it's Zecher. Anything of Amalek, any Zecher, any vestige. The word Zecher, Zachar, two different words, two different meanings, depending on the vowels. Here's another one. Lo tevashel gdi, don't cook meat, with chet lamed bet, imo. Don't cook meat with the something of its mother. What is it? What's that prohibition? Bachalev imo, right? Don't cook meat with milk, with the mother's milk. The word het lamed bet, if it doesn't have vowels, could also mean chelev. The Torah speaks about us not eating. You cannot eat a chelev of an animal. Chelev is that fat that looks like snow, white. White. It's not the grayish fat that sometimes comes with meat. It's chelev that before it comes to you, before the butcher packages it, here it has already been removed through a special process. People who know how to remove it and which one is forbidden, remove it. That's a very important. You're not allowed to eat it. It's asur mamash. Tremendous sin to eat chelev, just like to eat blood. We don't eat blood. The blood is removed through salting the meat, right? And the chelev through a process of, using a knife, special tools, instruments to just remove it. So without the vowels, how are you going to read it? Halav or chelev? Which one is it? Here's another one. And we spoke about it, I think, in the lecture about Torah Shebal Peh, the oral word. How the oral Torah is so important. Without the oral, how would we understand the written? It says a woman who gives birth to a girl, she's unclean for how many days? It says Shin Bet Ein Yud Mem. Shin Bet Ein Yud Mem means what? It could either be Shiv'im, 70 days. Wow, for 70 days? That's a lot. Or it could be Shvu'aim. If the right vowels are there, it could be just 2 weeks. And that's what it really reads. So you're looking at this, V'tame'ah Shiv'im. And she will be unclean for 70. 70, yeah? No, you didn't read it right. Tame'ah Shvu'aim. 2 weeks. Look at the difference between 2 weeks and 70 just because of the vowels. Without Masoret, you wouldn't know it. Then there is Sukkah. Sukkah is written 3 times in the Torah. Twice it's written without a Vav. And once it's written with a Vav. Samach Vav, Kaf Hey. And sometimes it's written without the Vav. Samach Kaf Hey. And we learn something from this. Don't think just, it's random. Nothing is random in the Torah. Whether if a letter is missing or there's an extra letter, it always comes to teach us something. And in Sukkah, we learn something from it. That the tradition tells us that the Sukkah, even if it's missing 1 wall, it only has 3 walls, it's still kasher. That's an important halakha for us to know. Otherwise, I would think, in building a Sukkah, in performing that mitzvah, I need to have 4 walls. No. The halakha is if you have 3 complete walls, it's good. And even if the 3rd one is not exactly complete, we have the additional details of halachot in the Masoret, in the Torah Shebal Peh, of how to build a Sukkah, even if it's smaller measurements. But all of these are examples of Masoret. I'm doing some translation work lately, from English, from Hebrew, into other languages. And I'm looking at some non-Jewish translations of the Torah, just to compare. Pesukim and all kinds of things. I'm trying to see how because I'm trying to find the right word. So if I don't have the text, I investigate, I do research with what others have written on how to interpret or how to translate a particular word in that particular language. And I saw sometimes many, many funny or incorrect translations, I should say. Totally not right, or at least not acceptable. They don't really fit with the text. How come? Why don't they have it right? And the answer is simple. They don't have Rashi. They're not looking at Metzudat David, Metzudat Zion, Ibn Ezra, Ramban. They're not looking at Onkelos, Yonatan ben Uziah. They're not looking at all the resources that we have that give us the Masoret, the right tradition of what the interpretation of this pasuk is. Give you a quick example that I just thought of. Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim v'et haaretz. What does that mean?
In the beginning.
Huh?
In the beginning.
In the beginning God created
The world.
the heavens and the earth? No, that's the wrong translation. Because if you just read it like that, you're trying to say that that's the order of things that He created. The Torah is not revealing to us, the first pasuk, the order in which things were created. Bereshit bara, was in the beginning. You know what God created first? Et hashamayim v'et haaretz. No, that came later on. There were other things that were created before the shamayim and the haaretz. Right? You look at the Sefer Bereshit, you will see what's created on the first day, what's the second, third. That's not in the beginning. What is the meaning of the pasuk. The word be, reshit, is in the English would be correctly translated in the beginning when God began to create the heavens and the earth. Or you have to add the word when He began to create. At that point when He began the process of creation, v'haaretz hayta tohu vavohu, and the land was void and empty. In other words, the Torah is not revealing or telling us what the order is, which appears it is. It's telling us, Bereshit bara Elokim ta shamayim ta'aretz v'haaretz hayta tohu vavohu. In the beginning, when He was creating, at that point, this is what the earth looked like. You see what I mean? It's just one word. When. Instead of saying in the beginning God created heaven, in the beginning when He was creating, this is the way the world looked like. It has nothing to do with the order. So without the Pirushim, without the Masoret, we would not understand what the Torah really wants to tell us over here. So that's why Masoret is so important. So here he says, it's a siyag la Torah. In other words, it's a protector of Torah. It helps us to continue with the tradition the way it was till now. One just additional idea of how it protects us. How does it help us? You learn the Chumash, you learn about Yosef, and you will learn about David HaMelech. You will learn about all kinds of personalities, individuals, in the whole Tanakh, right? And you may get an impression about these people. Did you ever see the movie, The Ten Commandments? I'm not saying people should see these movies, but in case you did see, do you think Moshe Rabbeinu was like that guy who played Moses? Or any of the other actors? How did they decide how the actor should play Moses? What kind of a personality he should be? An angry one. Why not use a comedian? In other words, what did they choose? Where did they get their information to decide what the individual should be like? They read the Chumash. That's it. Pretty much that's it. And they figured out, listen, Yosef was like this, David was like this, and Moses was like that. Without reading, without learning the Gemara, the Mefarshim, the commentaries, our tradition, one does not have an accurate picture of these personalities. When you read the Gemara, you see that Yosef was a big tzaddik. He was righteous. When you read the Gemara, you see who David HaMelech really was. You don't get that. You get the wrong idea. You may get the wrong idea just from reading the Tanakh. What he did. You say, David HaMelech could do that. How did he do that? If you don't read the Mefarshim, you don't read the Gemara, people may come to the conclusion, he's just an ordinary man, just like everybody else. No, he was a very special man. If Hashem chose him to be the king, he must have been very special. Well, how do you know that? Well, you have to learn everything else about him, not just read the Mikra. That's why it's so important to go with the Masoret. Masoret means that we don't second guess. We don't second guess the people. We don't second guess the Chachamim. Even though to us it may certain things may appear to be different than the way they understood it. Chaz v'shalom, if a person does not respect the Masoret, he can, again, that mind, that intelligent mind, that logical mind may want to argue, may want to offer another opinion. They didn't know. They weren't aware of this. Today we're aware of this. We have telescopes. All kinds of things that today many Jews who are trying to defend science, unfortunately, they don't want to defend the Torah, they want to defend science, and to reconcile the two, they're saying, the Chachamim were not necessarily so knowledgeable about this area, Chaz v'shalom. They were very knowledgeable, just that we don't perhaps understand what they wrote. If you respect the Masoret, then you know better not to argue with the tradition. The next siyag, the next fence is called Masrot. Masrot siyag la'osher. Masrot in English means to tithe, to give 10%. It has become also custom amongst other religions too, to give 10%. There's different kinds of Masrot. This is not the maaser of the crop that grows in the field, this is the maaser of one's income. The rabbis tell us, even though it's not clearly stated in the Torah, it is inferred. We learn that this is a good fence to preserve one's wealth. Actually, this is so powerful that Hashem says, God tells us, I don't allow you to test me except for this area. Just in this one area of giving 10% of one's net income, Hashem says, go ahead and test me. You will see that you will be blessed. I will prove it to you. You will never become poor from giving 10%. But it doesn't say you will become a millionaire. Even though the rabbis learn, Aser b'chedei shetit asher, give 10% in order that you should become rich. That rich does not mean millions of dollars in your bank account. It means that the wealth will be preserved. That's good too. A lot of people don't realize it, but before the day is over, they've just spent all this money. They don't know at what, right? That money is gone. So masrot siyak la'osher, it preserves. You won't have too many expenses that other people have. What you have will be preserved. You know, some cars, it's all bacht, you know, mazal, you know.
Right.
You bought a new car, and after a week of driving it, kaput. They call it a lemon in English. You know? You can have a car going for 20 years. And most people would change it, you know, for 20 years. You know, change the oil and make sure the water is there. Change the brakes, the little things, and the car goes. What is that? Mazal. Mazal. You didn't have to do too much to fix the car. Some people have headaches. What's all that? It's all min shamayim. It's all from heaven, all according to his mazal, how much headaches he's supposed to have with his house, with his possessions, with everything. So if you want a good protection for the wealth, for the money, ma'asrot. So this, what he's telling us here, first of all, is a segula. This kind of offense is actually, segula means a very, very powerful and special force or power that works metaphysically. Metaphysical means it's not natural. Why is it not natural? Because if you give away so much money, usually you're left with less. And here on the contrary, the rabbis are telling us this is one area where you will see the blessing. There's a famous midrash with a story of a father right before he passed away tells his son, listen, you see the field that I'm giving it to you? You're about to inherit. It was great. Great field. It produced 1,000, let's call it bushels. 1,000 bushels of wheat every year. And from the 1,000 bushels, I gave 100 bushels for tzedakah, for maaser. And as a result of the Baruch Hashem, it was always bountiful. You know what bountiful means, right? There was always a lot. Baruch Hashem, always blessing, sometimes even more than 1,000. Never less. Be careful and make sure to give every year maaser in order that your beracha should continue. The first year, the son saw that he was giving 1,000 and he gave 100. But after that, he became a little bit of a chassis, right? And he says, no, I want to economize a little bit. I want to give less. I want to give a little bit less. So he started giving, instead of 100, he gave 90. He gave 90. So guess what happened? The next year, he had 900. He was stubborn. He continued to give less. The next year he gave 80, he had 800. 70, 700. 60, 600. Until finally, all he got was 100. The most the field gave him was a yield of 100 bushels. Exactly the amount that his father used to give for maaser. When his relatives found out about it, they decided to come visit him in their best clothing. You know, clothing of Hagim. As soon as he saw them, he says, you came to make fun of me, right? You're dressing up, you're celebrating. No, chas v'shalom. We didn't come to make fun of you. We came to honor you. See, it used to be that you were the owner and Hashem was the Kohen. You know, that you gave all this to tzedakah. Now, Hashem became the owner and you've become the Kohen. Because you're the one that's getting the 100. Instead of Hashem giving the 100. Look what you did to yourself. Don't you realize that? So the story doesn't go on after that, but we understand from this a very important lesson is that you don't play around with this. You see it in real life. Midah keneged midah, measure for measure. When it comes to tzedakah, a person who is giving to others, Hashem always gives him. So ma'asrot, the giving of the maaser is a good way of preserving. It doesn't say stocks. It doesn't say gold or silver. It doesn't say any commodities. The best way to preserve the money is by giving tzedakah to others. Another idea of why masrot is good is because the Torah tells us that wealth can lead a person to arrogance. right? People who become very wealthy, they become arrogant. So the Torah, by telling us give, the giving reminds him, listen, you didn't make your money, and it was not your PhD that gave you the money, it was Hashem that gave you the money. That's what he's telling you to give part of it away to the poor. So the giving reminds one that it's not his. The giving reminds one that the money that one has is from Hashem, not from one's PhD. A lot of people think that because they went to college they will have good mazal. A lot of lawyers don't have that good of mazal, even though they went to law school for many years. Right? It has to do with whatever Hashem wants to give one. The next siyag is called nedarim. Nedarim siyag leprishut. Nedarim means promises. Siyag, it's a fence for abstinence. Prishut means to abstain from certain things. A person makes a neder, quit smoking. That will help him with staying away from whatever you plan to stay away from. Now, let me warn you, even though it's telling us the virtues of nedarim are usually not a good idea. Nedarim, rabbis tell us, stay away from. Even though, at times, a neder is a good thing, in general, the rabbis tell us, don't make a neder, even if you plan to fulfill it. What's going to happen now soon? Rosh Hashanah is coming, people are going to run and make hatarat nedarim, to release one from the vows that they may have made by mistake, or they shouldn't have made, they should have known better. It's always best just, if you say something, just say bli neder. Always get used to saying when you say something, even if it's not a big thing. I'll see you tomorrow, bli neder. Just, I'll see you. He didn't promise anything. You just assume. Also, it's always a good idea to get used to saying bli neder, without promising. You don't want the words to constitute a vow, a neder, a promise. Otherwise, it's very serious stuff. Chas v'shalom, a person promises and doesn't fulfill because even if he forgot, it's serious. So it's better not to make a promise. You want to give something, just give it without promising. You know, it's always better. Nevertheless, here he's telling us that there are some virtues, some advantages to nedarim. In the Torah, there's somebody called a Nazir. Remember? The Nazir who abstains from wine. Anything that comes from wine, doesn't take a haircut for 30 days at least, doesn't become tameh, unclean. Even though the Torah prescribes how a Nazir should handle himself, the Torah is not pushing one to become a Nazir. Why not? So the rabbis explain, because what's a Nazir doing? He has 613 commandments and he adds one more. You don't have enough? You need to make more restrictions? No more wine, no more this, no more this. It's hard enough, right? 613. You want more? Don't do this to yourself. Besides, Hashem wants you to enjoy the life. Enjoy grapes. Enjoy drinking wine on Shabbat. Hashem says, I want you to enjoy whatever is permissible to enjoy, of course, with the right amount that one can enjoy. Don't deprive yourself of, I don't want to have avocado anymore. Why not? Unless you're allergic, unless you know. No, I'm upset. Don't make a neder like that. Don't deprive yourself, limit yourself from what Hashem doesn't want you to. Hashem says this is okay. Go ahead. No, I want to be a vegan. That's the ones that don't have eggs. Vegan?
No meat.
No, that's vegetarian is no meat. Vegan, I think, is only vegetables. Why? What does it say to be like that? That's a new philosophy, you should know. It's a new religion. The Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says you can have your eggs, right? Just don't have them with bacon, right? just eggs, You can have soft and hard and omelets, however you want it. There's nothing wrong with it. As long as you don't overdo it. Don't have too much of it, right? You want to have meat? That's good. That's okay. It has iron. It has a lot of good things. Just don't have too much of it. You don't want to have, maybe we should close that door. You don't want to have beef, you want to have chicken because it's lean, it's that, okay, that's fine too, But don't prohibit something. Don't prohibit, The Torah says it's okay. So here, he's talking about that nedarim is a siyag prishut. It actually helps us in some ways. How does it help us? At times, people need it. There's a neder that the rabbis tell us is called a neder shel zrizut. Like I gave you the example with smoking. The guy can't kick the habit. He just can't kick the habit. So one way of kicking the habit is, for every cigarette that I smoke from now on, $10 in the tzedakah. He's going to stop very quickly, before it adds up. $10 for now, right? It's going to affect him. So if he makes that kind of a neder and he knows that he respects nedarim, that may stop him. A guy who's having a problem with the diet, just can't lose it. He always sees a good tasting food. What's the name of that? The Persians have it in weddings sometimes. It looks creamy, and it's made from rice, but it's like a pudding.
Pirkei.
No.
Sweet?
It's orange color, and you see it. You see big trays of it. I think that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. Some people, especially the older Persians, they run to it.
Yeah, easy to digest.
I don't know why. I say, wait a minute, to eat that for dessert, maybe. No, before. Yeah, that's the one.
I guess so.
With rice, no? It's something with rice.
It's like a pudding.
It's like a pudding, yeah. I guess they had to figure out all kinds of. They got sick of all the polok teshmesh and all the other things. They had to use the rice with something else, right? So they make a jelly of it. Anyway, so certain people, they like certain things. They're used to certain things. It's hard for them to kick their habit. It's hard for them to lose weight. It's hard for them to go on a diet because they like certain things. They see it. Oh, I thought you're on a diet. Tomorrow, not today. So therefore, nedarim may be a good way to lerasen et ta'avot, as we say in Hebrew, to neutralize, to control ta'avot, desires. This might be the only way. Yeah. So that's why it says in nedarim are powerful, but don't use it. It can be a powerful way to hold back somebody from who has a problem, has a weakness, for him to be poresh from that thing. But otherwise, this one should be taken with caution. Next one. Siag la chokhmah shetika. This one is very, very powerful. One of the greatest powerful fences to be smart is to know when to keep quiet. The moment we say a word, we may not be able to take it back. That's it. It's gone. It may have offended someone. It may have done harm. So before we say, think before you talk. There's a saying, there's an English saying or Swiss proverb, I forget who it is from, that speech is silver and silence is golden. You may have heard about it. Well, the rabbis in the Gemara say it differently. They say mila besela umashtuka b'shtayim. A word is worth one sela, whereas silence is worth two. In other words, silence can be more valuable, more precious than speech. Speech is important. You can do a lot of things with good speech, but silence many times wins. It's more precious. As Mishlei tells us, Solomon tells us in Mishlei, Gam evil maharish chacham yechashev. Even a fool, when he keeps quiet, people think that he's smart. Look at all the senators when they keep quiet. You think that they look, their hair is combed, they're wearing a nice tie and a very expensive suit. You think the guy is who knows what. He's a smart person. He went through college for 25 years, and who knows? Maybe he's the next president of this country. And it turns out that he's completely empty. If you start speaking to him, he knows nothing. So how did he get elected? Because he was on the ballot. When people, anybody can, if you're an American citizen, you can be elected no matter how little or how much, it has nothing to do with knowledge. Your IQ, the IQ can be -10 if there is something like that. So what? Anyway, so siag la chokhmah shtika. It can help even the fool. He doesn't want to reveal how little he knows. He keeps quiet. Once he starts talking, he opens his mouth. Then you will know that he's really a fool. But why siag la chokhmah shtika? Why is it a good fence? Because a lot of trouble that we have in life is because of our mouth. It could be lashon hara, gossiping. It could be slander. It could be joking. It could be lies. It could be all kinds of things that happen through the mouth, right? So because of that, it's best to be very, very careful with the mouth. And how to do that is to be silent. When you're silent, you're also able to hear what somebody has to say, and then answer. If you're learning something, you will learn better by listening to everything that is being discussed and then talking, not interrupting all the time. So siyag la-chokhmah shtika, a very good fence to preserve the chokhmah, is not to always talk, is to really think about everything before you say it. However, I found one very beautiful idea expressed in these words. The rabbi, I forget his name, Rabbi from Husiyatan, I think, said like this: if siyag la chokhmah is shetika, if silence is a fence for chokhmah, then what is the chokhmah itself? In other words, he's giving it another twist. If keeping quiet is a fence for chokhmah, then what's above that? What is the chokhmah? The chokhmah is above that, right? What is chokhmah then? Keeping silent is good. Then what's better than that? What is the chokhmah itself? So let me give you an example of what he's talking about and you will understand. Husband and wife have been living with each other for a number of years. And let's pick on the husband for now. The husband is very upset at the way his wife does things around the house. And he gets himself into trouble always when he says something about it. Because then she starts telling him off. Or whatever. Or she doesn't make him dinner the next day. So he says, you know what? I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. Is that good or bad? What do you say?
Good. Between the two?
He wants to stay out of trouble.
No, between the two it's better.
Which
but I think there's even better than
okay, we're going to get to that. But yeah. He said, I don't want to get into trouble. I learned the hard way. I'm just going to keep my mouth shut. He's smart. Siyag la-chokhmah shtika. So this rabbi says, hey, you don't win with this. Why? Because a person can keep quiet when he's in trouble and still feel bitter inside. You know what's chokhmah? It doesn't even bother you anymore. You train yourself that when you see a situation that is unpleasant, that is not to your liking, that you disapprove of, say, okay, no big deal. I can live with that. Everybody's different, right? It's a democracy. However you want to look at it. Don't let it bother you. That's a much greater chokhmah than keeping quiet. Keeping quiet, by the way, is a good thing to do at home and in many, many times, but it doesn't always work because your wife may ask you, why are you so quiet today? Then what do you do? You say, I took upon myself a ta'anit dibur. That's an excuse. Ta'anit dibur is there's a ta'anit, a fast, where you don't deprive yourself of food. You don't talk the whole day. Some people do it so it helps them, cleanse themselves in other ways. So you may come up with an excuse, if she ever asks you. But it is a good idea. Sometimes we have to know when to keep our mouths shut because we say the wrong things, especially if you get upset. You're just creating more trouble, more pain for nothing. So keep your mouth shut. But sometimes you need to say. Speech is important. Speech is important to communicate, to assuage someone's feelings, to calm them down, to all kinds of situations where speech is important. So you just can't keep quiet all the time. And that Kohelet says, "Lakol zman ve'ed lechol chefetz tachat hashamayim." There's a time for everything. So there's a time to keep quiet. But this rabbi came and gave it another twist. Yes, but when it comes to this kind of situations where you're having a hard time with someone, train yourself not to even take it personally, not to feel hard about it, not to feel pain by it. If you can get to that point where what is being said to you or done to you doesn't disturb you anymore, that's the chokhmah. That's the higher level. All right, we've come to the last Mishnah. Very important Mishnah. Hu haya omer, still Rabbi Akiva. Chaviv adam shenivra b'tzelem. Man is precious. The human being is very precious because he was created in the image of God. Chiba yetera noda'at lo shenivra b'tzelem shenemar b'tzelem Elohim asa et ha'adam. It is very special on Hashem's part that He actually informed us. He let us know in the Torah that we were created b'tzelem. In other words, it's very, very special that we know about it, that we are told that we are created in His image. Okay, so what's so special about that? When somebody gives you a gift, that's very nice. But when somebody gives you a gift that you don't even know what it's all about, and he explains to you, let me show you how precious this is and how important and valuable this is, obviously it means that he cares more about us, that he's letting us know what he gave us. Life is a beautiful gift. And that is why it's a big sin for someone to commit suicide and throw away that precious gift called life. Life is very precious. And the human being is told, listen, you were created, you were brought into this world, you mean a lot to Hashem. You mean so much to Him. You're not an ordinary animal. You were created with an image, a divine image. I'm saying a divine because God does not have an image, so I don't want people to make the mistake. What's this Tselem Elokim all about? It means the ability to rationalize, lavinu le'askil. It means the freedom of choice, free will in certain areas, right? And it means that we are able to lehidamot to the midot of Hashem. We're able to emulate the ways of Hashem by being compassionate, by being kind, benevolent, and so forth. We are able as human beings to emulate the ways of Hashem, as opposed to animals who have only instincts. A lion is courageous, right? And an ant is industrious, right? Industrious. Have you ever seen a lion that's courageous and industrious? Or a lion that's a coward? No. An animal is an animal the way he was created for. A tiger, a leopard, they will be ferocious. Even if you tame them, they're very unpredictable. That's their nature. You will not see one animal have two natures, his and the ant, or the opposite of his. That's it. A human being can have everything. A human being can be lazy and courageous. Can be courageous and industrious. A human being can have the midot of Hashem. These are all, can emulate Hashem and can be a lot of things, multifaceted. And he has the ability to choose. He has the ability to decide. He has the ability to reason, to rationalize. This is a tremendous koach through the sechel, through the mind, which is, of course, through the neshama. Because it's divine, he has all that abilities that an animal does not have. So by Hashem revealing to us that we are created in His image, you know what that really tells us? Not only how special we are, guess what? You're not an ape. Even though some people think they come from monkeys. No, you're not an ape. You are created in a divine image. You're not a monkey. Therefore what? Well, since you're not an animal, you're a human being, guess what? You have responsibilities. You're accountable for your deeds because you can distinguish between right and wrong. Oh, that's what these people don't want. That's what they're saying. Evolution, Big Bang, we come from monkeys and so forth, because that means they're free to do as they feel. They're just another monkey. We're here by mistake, by accident. Look what the Torah tells us. The Torah says, no. You're not an animal. You're not just here by accident. You are here because Hashem put you here, and He's letting you know, He's letting you know that you are special, that you're different than everyone else, and therefore be careful with that gift of life, with that Tselem Elokim. Chavivin Israel. Now he told us that human beings are special. Now he's telling us the Jewish people are special. Now look at the difference between this Mishnah and the first Mishnah in the Perek. The first Mishnah in the Perek, Akavia b'Mahalalel, was telling us, remember where you come from. You come from a tipas rucha, from nothing. You're going to the grave. There he really lowers the human being to, like they say, to the nuts and bolts of, you come from nothing, you're going to nothing. So don't think so highly of yourself. Obviously, to produce humility. That's what his intention was. But here, Rabbi Akiva is raising the self-esteem back. It was lowered for good reason, but now it's being raised. We need both. A person has to remember where he's come from and where he's going to. But also remember, you're precious. You're very precious. You're different. So here, Rabbi Akiva is elevating man to realize that he's the crown of creation, that the whole world is for him. And the next one is where he's telling the Jewish people, you're not just ordinary human beings. That you were called children of Hashem. And it's so special that Hashem let us know that we are His children. What does children have to do with anything? There was a Persian guy, again Persian, yeah. who a couple years ago made a big bar mitzvah. He spent $100,000 on it. That's a lot of money, right? Yeah. So all his friends came over to him. Yes, very nice. But how come the wedding last year for your daughter you didn't make it lavish? You were so cheap about the wedding. The bar mitzvah you're making up expensive, and the wedding you made cheap. He says, from a bar mitzvah you can't get divorced. So I don't want to take a chance with the wedding. I don't know what's going to happen, but from the bar mitzvah there's no divorce. Very smart. He must have been a Hamadani. No? Anyway, you can't get divorced. What's the point? The point is, could a father divorce his son or daughter or child? Divorce is only husband and wife. They can be divorced. Chas v'shalom. Right? Chas v'shalom, God forbid. Divorce can happen without the Hashem says, we're not husband and wife, you are my children. And I'm letting you know that I'm treating you as a child, so even if I'm upset at you and I hit you and I slap you, I still love you. This is very, very important statement because Chas v'shalom, if one ever finds himself be'et sarah, at a time when he's suffering in pain, he's sick, no money, no job, we are his children. He looks after us. What's this going on in our life? We don't know. We don't know everything. But it's for our good. We're his children, and a father takes care of. Most parents love their children. And you know the greatest love on earth, and I'm going to repeat this many, many times because some people don't understand this. The greatest love on earth, more than a husband for a wife, more than anything else in the world, is a father to a child. Much more than the child to their parent. Hashem made it so. That you should be so attached and so loving and so much want for them the best, so you should provide for them. So part of it is instinctual. It's not just, from nowhere. It's part of nature. That's very powerful. Of course, there's all kinds of love. There's a love between husband and wife. There's a love between two friends that can be very powerful too. It could be platonic. It could be altruistic. It could be very passionate. It could be strong. Beautiful. It should last. But parent, children, especially a father or mother to a child, and more a father than a mother. That is why we say in our prayer, Kerahem av al banim. Hashem, please have compassion on us the way a father has for the children. Why not a mother? Well, because there's some mothers who are throwing their babies in the trash cans. Did you see them? You find them all over the place.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. Not all of them. Some.
It's a sickness.
It's a sickness. Crazy. They're not attached. They're not attached to the child. It can happen. That's what the Torah says. The rabbis use the term Kerahem av, like the pity or compassion a father has. That's much more that could be strong. Now there are fathers who are crazy too, right? I'm talking about normal people here. Kerahem av al banim, and that is what I believe most nuschaot on Yom Kippur in the Machzor says. That there is a saying over there, Ki ata avinu ve'anu banecha. Right? If you remember that, because you are our father and we are your children. In other words, we remind Hashem, this is our relationship. Have pity on us because our relationship is stronger than anything else could be. And this is important when a Jew is especially be'et sarah, he's having a difficult time, he shouldn't despair, chas v'shalom. Even chas v'shalom, he went off the derech, he became distant. Hashem says, I did not divorce you. You're my child. I will never divorce you. Many goyim think, Hashem abandoned the Jews. He did not abandon us. We're his children. So this is a special chibah that he's letting us know that we are banim lamakom. Shenemar banim atem l'Hashem elekochim. We are his children. And last but not least, Chavivin Israel, we're also special in another way. Shenitan lahem kli chemda, that we received a very, very special, precious vessel. What's that? That's the Torah. It's very, very special of Hashem to have let us know that He gave it to us because through it the world was created. I gave you such a precious gift, a precious vessel. Therefore, be careful not to let go of it. This is worth so much. What is this exactly? All the nations of the world got something. If you look at world history, the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, Great Britain, America, Persia, the Arabs, the oil, everybody got something, It's interesting. If look around the world, especially the bigger countries, the natural resources, all the good things, nations received something. And even in the language, different languages are are better for different things. The Jewish people, however, received the Torah. The Torah is the blueprint of creation. It's the map of life. That's more special than anything else. So therefore, when a Jew thinks about it, we have such a small country. It used to be that we had no oil and not too many natural resources. Today they're discovering oil and gas too. But we received the Torah. We receive something more precious and more important than anything else. So therefore, he reminds us over here, Al Ta'azov, remember, this vessel is something so special that Hashem gave you and no one else. Don't minimize it. And just look at this incredible phenomena. This is no longer only precious to us. In every hotel room, you will find it in a drawer or two. Huh? You open up the drawer, the Bible, the Holy Bible. A great number of people in the world, Christian, Muslims, and whatever, they respect this Torah. Isn't that incredible? It's the best seller for who knows how many years. It still is the best seller, translated in over 100 languages. This is the Torah. So unfortunately, sometimes a Jew forgets about that. He has to be reminded that what he has is more important than what everybody else has. So all of this is a very, very special, strong reminder to the Jews, telling you, listen, Hashem has given you something that He wants you to hold on to it. It's not to put in a museum. It's not some archaeological old souvenir from the past or something that that you're just going to store away. This is your life. So therefore, Torati al tazovu, don't let go of it for no money in the world. Don't tamper with it. Don't give it away. Don't change it. It was a sad day when it was translated into other languages because they can't translate it right. Therefore, we have to be reminded about this. This is not an ordinary book. However, there's one more thing here. One of the most unique things about the Torah is that it has many, many segulot, many, many properties that does a lot of good to us. Not only does it protect us from the Yetzer Hara, not only does it give us life, not only does it show us direction. The Torah does so much for us. A life is the Torah. But one thing that is very, very important to keep in mind is that even if a Jew strayed away, far away from the Torah, became totally irreligious, is far, and some people might even think he's a lost case. Not if he gets back to the Torah. If you are able to bring him to a class of Torah, if you are able to sit down and teach him the Torah, if he's able to pour his eyes into the words of the Torah, we have a tradition that the light of the Torah is so shining, so powerful, that in itself will bring him back to the root, to his people, to Hashem. Whereas, other things may or may not. You can argue with him, you can convince him, you're doing the wrong thing, you don't know what you're talking about, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your life, what are you going to do? A guy he's no longer a baby. He's on his own. He has a mind of his own. He wants to marry who he thinks he wants to marry. He wants to lead his life the way he thinks is right. How are you going to convince him? If you are able to ever get him to learn Torah, that's the only thing that can cure him. He may be lucky that even without Torah on his own, because his parents and grandparents shed tears for him, and they prayed so much for him that Hashem will drag him in. Okay. There's all kinds of ways that Hashem can bring somebody back. But this is a guaranteed way that if one is sincere, as long as he's sincere and open-minded, of course, and not a mocker who makes fun of everything, if we expose him to the words of the precious word, to the Klichem Da Kol Torah, then B'ezrat Hashem we will see miracles. And God willing, who knows? You all may know somebody who's far. If you're ever be able to give him a CD or point him to an address on the internet or bring him to a class, you never know. What one word can do. Try it out, you can tell him. What do you have to lose? 1 hour of your life. And they can make a life of a difference, a world of a difference. That this 1 hour that he spent, I didn't know this. That's a lot of people are going to say this. I did know this. Well, because you never learned. How sad that they have been deprived. It's not their fault most of the time. So today is the generation of Mashiach. Today is the generation of bringing people back with Tshuva. That's the biggest mitzvah. And of course, anything that we can do to encourage that through Torah, we will see ourselves as Hashem that in the merit of the Torah, in the merit of the parents and grandparents who gave their life for Torah too, who may no longer be with us, that child or grandchild will come back. And we will, of course, will have a part of that mitzvah. That is why, that's how Rabbi Akiva chooses to finish this Mishnah. Torati al ta'azovu. Don't let go of this, because this is the only chance that it still exists that can bring back even a Jew who was in the far corners of the world doing yoga on the Himalayas and going to speak to a guru who one day will tell him, "You're a Jew? You're from Israel? Be ashamed of yourself. What I know is from you guys. Go back to where you come from. What are you coming to India for? Of course, Hashem gets involved in all of that. But we have to try our part to motivate, especially those who are relatives of us, that we have greater responsibilities. That Hashem should give us, of course, the insight and the strength to bring back as many Jews as possible.
Amen.